4 and he loves it there, so I'm not going to touch him. We just want to explore what works, and apparently this family had figured it out. So let's learn from them. How did their journey, their ups and downs, their struggles, their success stories, their tips, and do's and don'ts. Yeah? Alright, so with that, I would like to invite Amy, our moderator, and our first forum panelists, David, KV, Haslinda, and Mr. Su. We have, yes, Mr. Su to represent them, because I have that question, how do I approach my parents? Okay, I'm going to move that mic.
Okay, good morning everyone, and I'm so glad to see all of you here today, and I want to thank Sheila for organizing this. Today's panel, the one that we have up here, is really about answering basic questions that you have about homeschooling, the ones that we hear most often about how to do it. If you have more specific questions and we don't answer them during this time up here, there will be a question and answer session that you can ask them. And I suppose if you don't get to ask your question, then there's a break afterwards, so you can approach the speakers here and ask them as well. So to start with, we should introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself, and then we'll just go down the panelists. I'm Amy, and I'm a mother of 2, and I've been homeschooling for 2 years. And I was just like you. I attended a homeschool conference organized by David here actually many, many years ago. And I didn't know anything about homeschooling. And after the conference, I was very privileged that several homeschoolers actually came to my center and started to take my critical and creative thinking classes. So I had, I think, almost 10 years to observe them, see what they're like, meet their parents, watch them grow up, see how they turned out. So by the time my kids were at that point where we have to make a decision, are we going to put them in school or are we going to homeschool, we pretty much had made up our mind that we wanted to homeschool them. So that's me. I'm going to pass it to, let's go with David first and just go down the row to introduce yourself. Can you just tell us like how many children you have, your homeschool background or experience, and what was it that made you decide to homeschool?
Yeah, I have 2 boys. My oldest is 26 and he's just married. I have the second one, Alex, who's here, and you'll be hearing him shortly. We've been homeschooling all our lives. I think we started this homeschooling when they were already 3 or 4 years old, at the time when we were supposed to go and register our kids in the kindergarten or the primary school, but we skipped that, and we've kept at it all the way until they were in high school and they were moved on to college and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey. So here I am. Yeah.
Good morning, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Homeschooling father, and 3 kids, 20, 19, and 12. They have been homeschooled almost all their lives, with the exception of my eldest daughter. She took a few years holiday to go to school for 2 years and then came back. Just to take a break from homeschool, enough for parents. Okay, so yeah, we had it in our minds to have a different approach to education. Before our kids was born, before they were born, I actually thought of starting a school. Wrote a paper, get other people to support me. Then when it hit the wall is called Ministry of Education. So we went there. We all sorts of conditions to try to fulfill. We cannot. So I said we give up. We do something else. And we explored homeschooling. We tried. And we met David, who was a few years ahead of us. Was an inspiration to us as well. And we learned. And we attended the homeschool conference in the US. The whole family there. It's spent about a week, 2 weeks, I can't remember how long, but we spent some time. And we came back fully reinforced that that was the way to go. And today, my father will now know the real secrets of what I did.
Should we address you as KB if they want to ask a question? Yeah.
KB is good. Yeah. I feel a little bit embarrassed and I feel a little bit ashamed. Why I selected two sons on this panel here? Very unfair to all this. Anybody wants to take over? Well, this home study, initially I was a little bit not very in favor. I myself, frankly speaking, is not very well educated. So my parents, my mother was illiterate, my father from China, very little education. Education is actually depends on yourself. I start to think the importance of education is somewhere around from secondary school. In primary, still very stupid. Stupid thinking in primary. But once you're in the secondary school, you start to think that earning a living is not that so simple as everybody thinks. Very hard for it. Because I come from a family, it's not a family like Lao Yatla or the big one. That's a little bit lower than you all. So I have to think for myself how to struggle. I have to study and I also have to work to support my study. So I went up to senior Cambridge only. From there on I started how to work until 10 years ago. I wanted to carry on working but nobody wants to employ me. This home study, initially I was a little bit against it. So I told my son, how can you do that time? 3 children do never go to school. And then finally he promised me, the last one will go to school. The last one will go to school. So I was very happy I'm the last one. And that time also started to say, Wawasan school, Vision school, like Mahathir. After school you open, I thought, hey, what happened to your children? Oh, home study. Home study, in fact, I have asked some of my friends who are businessmen, who are holding high position. Then most of them are not very in favor. That is in Seremban, in KL, I don't know, most of the people. But surprising that in Seremban there are a lot of home study. Why? Here and there. Anyway, thank you for your attention.
So we should address you as Mr. Soon. Is that right? In question time? Yeah? Okay.
I always keep quiet, right? Mr. Soon,
Okay. And then finally we have Haslinda.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I don't know how I get sucked into this, but I'm definitely not an expert because we have just embarked on homeschooling in 2012, so it's about 5 years. Yeah. I have 5 kids. My eldest is 19, my youngest is 1 year old. My kids have been to school. They have been to government school, they have been to private school, and we get pushed into homeschooling because my third child has dyslexia, and we have tried government school and we tried private school and it doesn't work, and I say, okay, what school to try? So let's try homeschooling. So I always tell people when they say, I don't have the courage like you to do homeschooling, we don't have either. We just, we just try what works. So we get pushed into the situation, we find our way, and we are still doing it. I started homeschooling my third child for 1 year. I tell all my other kids, I said, let me try it for 1 year, and then see if it works. Then maybe next year you guys will have the option. So unfortunately, all of them hate school, so they choose to be homeschooled the following year. Yeah, so here we are. So they are still homeschooling. So at the moment, my number one and my 19 years old and my 17 years old just take their IGCSE, and they have got the results. So they are preparing for college. Hopefully next year we'll see what happens. So yeah, so that's my background. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So now that we know our panelists, the first question that I'm going to ask you is about probably one of the most common questions. Whenever someone finds out that you are homeschooling, the first question they will ask is, what about socialization? Is it really a concern? How do you overcome it if it's a problem? What are your thoughts? And any of you can answer this question. So I leave it up to you to volunteer to answer about the socialization aspect.
I personally think that the problem is not really a big one. I think in this day and age, you can see that we are homeschooling, we are getting along, we have friends, we manage. But there are a couple of things of concern. First of all, it would be this. I don't think you need to have a lot of friends. You need to have very few close friends. Actually, for many of us, very few close friends are good enough. But secondly, you find that today the opportunity for socialization and for interaction is enormously improved from the days when you first started. I think social media has helped to break more barriers and bring people together. And I don't see that as a very relevant question today, really, because people are interacting. There are a number of homeschooling group on Facebook, and they are doing all sorts of things almost every week. We never had that when we began. And it's a multiracial thing, it's multicultural, and it's going on almost every other day. So what kind of question is that, about socialization? I can't understand that. So I'm not sure whether that's a real concern, because I don't see that as a deterrent, really.
Okay, thank you. Haslin, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, it's funny, when we embark on homeschooling, suddenly things that is not interesting to other people become interesting to them. I can say this because my kids has been in school. So I can give you a perspective of kids being in school and kids not being in school. When my kid was in school, nobody bothers to ask, what have you learned? Or who's your friend? Nobody. Whenever we have family function, all the things that they ask is, this year standard 6, you besar. Ready or not? Can score. Or, oh, PT3 this year. It's all revolved around exam. I don't know about you, but I have 5 kids, and I can tell you, every time we have family gathering, we meet the uncle, we meet the grandpa, the grandma, all they ask is exam. How's your exam, Then you start homeschooling, then they wonder, what are you learning? You buat apa today? Or, they will start checking, do you have friends? So, I think this is the thing that I can really relate to what Mr. Sun said. Like, it is a path less traveled. It doesn't only make you anxious, it makes a lot of other people anxious too. And I have learned not to give a knee-jerk reaction or to be very emotional, because I think everybody in the end means well. They want the best for your kids, especially the grandparents, the uncles, the aunties. Maybe the way they ask is not really nice, or it can be intimidating, but in the end, they actually have concern. So whenever people have concern about socialization, I always ask them, what is socialization? What is your definition of socialization? So it really depends on what is your definition of socialization. If your definition of socialization is having friends same age, then maybe homeschooling will not give you that. But if your definition of socialization is your kids are able to integrate into the society regardless of race, gender or age, then I think it is not a problem. Because I think whether you homeschool or you don't homeschool, that socialization is the responsibility of the parents to make sure that the kids actually see enough human being to interact. What I have learned, I can tell you, my kids are more socialized when they homeschool. This is what my kids say. They say when they were in school, they can't really click with their peers. They have to pretend they click because they can't really relate things that their friends are talking about. Maybe they are weird, but they don't gossip much and they're not interested. My kids are not the type of kids that take selfies or yeah. So when in school, they told me that sometimes the things that your friends talk about are just the same thing again and again and again. They just really can't relate. And I think this really depends on the type of children. Like my son, my 19 years old, I think sometimes his mind is too complex that not even 15, 16 years old or people his age can understand. He do very well with people older than his age. So he gets along very well when surrounded by, older people. So it really depends. I don't think you should worry about socialization if your definition is to be integrated. I've got remarks from a lot of people that they think my children are very, they're not sane, yeah? They're not angels, but a lot of people are saying that they can talk really well and they integrate very well with people. And I realized with homeschooling, because homeschooling kids are so used to being around people of different age, they're not, if I throw them here, they can talk to you. They are so used to, being surrounded by adults, being surrounded by younger people. So that is actually a plus. And I think, especially for people like me, it is very important for me that my kids mix around with people of different race and different religion. I want my kids to be a global citizen, and I get that through homeschooling. And I don't have to worry about them being insensitive to other people of different races. So it's really how you are doing it. So that's my view on socialization. So I do get the concern of people that they think that when you homeschool you tend to stay in the school. No, you tend to stay in the house. But the truth is, it's up to you. And I am coming from a background where neither me nor my husband is a social butterfly. So we are antisocial as well. My husband will die in this kind of crowd. So you know why you don't see him. But I can tell you that my kids have enough interaction. And I think what we get from homeschooling, the other thing is I get to control who my kids mix around with. Because I think one of the disadvantage of school is that regardless of how much I know about my kids' friend, I will never know enough. Because the people that they interact with, yeah. And with the access to social media, with the access to information on the internet, you will be surprised what kids 7-year-old, 8-year-old are learning from school. By homeschooling, I do have more control. I do get to, they are mixing with people that I know about their family values and I can control that. So I find that is a plus. So to me, socialization is one of the advantages of homeschooling.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. We have to stop with that question and move on. All right, the next question that we have is about when you decide to homeschool, parents, grandparents, they may not take it well. They may have, they may not understand what homeschooling is. They may feel uneasy about it. And it's not just parents and grandparents. It could also be a spouse who may not be supportive. I think as homeschoolers or anyone considering it, you know that you will have to face relatives and family members who do not understand what homeschooling is or who may not approve of your decision. So the next question is, how do you deal with that? But first, I know, Mr. Soon, you shared a little bit just in the introduction about your thoughts, how you saw homeschooling when you first heard that your son is going to not put his kids in school. So my question is, like, how did your opinion change? What was it that changed your opinion about homeschooling after some time?
It's not that I'm against whatever it is. I'm very free. I love my children to do what they want to do, as long as they are in the right line. So I always give them freedom. Stay away, smoking, drinking, gambling, and do things that are not sociable. So I'm very free. I have 3 children. The eldest is besides me, and I have a daughter, and I have another son in Australia, migrated already. I allow them to do what they want. Even when he finished his Form 6, actually he's planning to go to university. But he insists that, Papa, I want to become a monk. He wants to become a monk. I want to stay in Thailand. Oh my God. When I told my friend, hey, you shouldn't allow your son to be. So I don't know how I allow him to go. I think he spent about more than 10 years being a vegetarian and spent many years being a monk. And then he used his goes to jungle, do meditation in the jungle. I don't know as a parent how you all feel. I don't know how. But I still think do what they like to do as long as it is sociable and doesn't hurt people and is always on the right path. So none of my children are graduated. Every time my youngest son, Papa, I want to be a coach. I sent him to study actually in the same school, in the Form 6. But quietly he left the school. Don't even let me know. He left the school. He wanted to discontinue his study. So I came to know. I quickly go to the school. He said his name had been struck off. No. I went to the education department to make sure that he gets a seat back. So I went back. But he's still not interested in studying. But after that he became a salesman. Then he said he wanted to be a coach. Apparently, he became swimming coach. But the first thing I always advise my children, before you start any sport before you start, swimming is the most important sport that you must learn. Because swimming, people can get drowned in a 3 feet water. If you don't know swim, can drown. First game that you want to do is swimming. As long as you know how to swim, then you pick what you want. He picks basketball, but never, no tournament, didn't see any trophy from him. My daughter, I like him very keen in tennis. And my last son also very keen in tennis. That's why he became a tennis coach. He went to Australia, no job because of the job he has. It's also considered as home study that he learned himself. If I'm a coach, he learned himself. So I never interfere what he's doing. This is part of the home study also. The other daughter, so he also a tennis player. My grandchildren, all of them are sportsmen. My eldest granddaughter, which is my daughter's daughter, he went to university, he graduated accounting, but he never works as an accountant. Now it's a gym coach who wants to learn how to play gym. Please go. speak very thick and carry very heavy weight. The other son in Australia is, as I say, is a tennis coach. So he look for a job morning. They just take a racket to the court. There are people asking to be coached. People was easy. Jadi makan in Australia. And my grandson, but also my daughter's son, after schooling, he went for study cooking class. He wants to get a certificate in cooking. After 6 months, he gave up and become a swimming coach because he due to the good learning. Also considered as a home study. He learned himself. Get a few good friends and coach to teach him how to do and he become a swimming coach.
So it sounds like you are used to having unconventional routes being taken by your children, your grandchildren in this. Maybe I can ask David, did you have any resistance or unfavorable attitudes when you decided to follow the path of homeschooling?
I think that, yeah, there will be some reservations always. I think that my dad was a very open-minded person. He had some reservation, but not very, very strong objections. I think I remember when we first thought about it, Su Ching was also concerned about her own parents, whether they would react unfavorably. But we never really had very strong objections. I think that the greatest concern at the time was not so much that we were going against the wishes of our parents, but whether we would get into trouble with the government. I think that was the one that was the first and the uppermost in our minds. But eventually, I think we got over it because we felt that, yeah, some point in your life you had to draw a line, and we felt that we would just go ahead and we did that. So I can't say that we had a lot of objections.
Lucky for you as well. Because Linda, how about you? How did you deal with the grandparents?
My dad was not happy, and my dad was as stubborn as me. But he knows that I will still go ahead. I think this is the thing that you need to remember when you deal with objections about homeschooling. Nobody needs to approve how you raise your children. Nobody. You are not, you doesn't owe anybody any explanation. As long as you and your husband think this is the best option for your children, go ahead. If you try, it doesn't work, you put them back to school, you're not a failure. You just try what works. So this is one thing that you need to remember. Second thing that you need to remember is what values you are showing to your children. You don't want to lie to people. You don't want to lie to your grandparents, or you don't want to say, oh, when we met Ato and Nenek say you are going to school. So what are you teaching your children, right? And you have to understand that there are only so much you can do to your children. You can try and try, but in the end, the outcome is still up to God. There are certain things that, you know, is beyond your control. You need a lot of blessings to make things happen. And one of the blessings is from your parents. So you can't get it if you keep fighting with your parents and you lie to them. So this is important. To me, you have to be very realistic. If you face the objection, you have to understand why are they objecting. Is it because they are worried? You know, is it because they don't believe in homeschooling? Yeah. As long as they don't stop you, that's fine. They don't have to agree with you. As long as they don't stop you from doing it, they don't go and report you to Ministry of Education. Trust me, there are people who did this. Yeah, I've heard of parents who have gone through this where, you know, the grandparents go and talk to the Ministry of Education or whatever. So as long as they don't do things like that, you just go ahead. To me, I think what you can tell, try not to be confrontational. The problem is that whenever people embark on homeschooling, they start being very defensive, and every time you face a situation, you start trying to argue. So it is always in a confrontation mode. If you face objection from the grandparents, do acknowledge their concern, because we are all concerned about the children anyway. To me, you can just, some of the stuff that you can say things like, let me try for 1 year and see if it works, and I need your support in this. If it doesn't work, we'll put them back in school. Discuss this as an adult and try not to be confrontational. When I pull out my third child from school, nobody questioned me, because to them, my children has dyslexia, she doesn't fit into school, and she has problem. But when I pull out the rest from school, a lot of people are not happy. Especially, like my son is doing really well in school with the exams. So they say, you think you can do a better job? Why would you actually pull them out? But the thing that I did is I never argue with anybody. I don't think I owe anybody any explanation. And I don't tell people what homeschooling is. Because to me, if they are interested to know, they can Google up themselves, or they can find out themselves. Those who don't understand don't want to understand. So regardless of how much you try to explain, they won't get it. So I don't waste my time. I have learned the art of deviating attention. I smile, I change topic. Save my energy, saves your energy. It's true. In family gathering, I will have all the aunties, ni apa ni? Tak pergi sekolah ni. Auntie, I heard you go Australia that day. It always works. But it's true. You don't owe anybody any apology, or any explanation. But what I can say is that my dad was one of the person who is very unhappy, and he did tell me. He said, especially with my son, because he's that's his favorite cucu. So he said, I'm not happy, I don't agree, but I know you will go ahead anyway. So I just keep quiet. I leave it at that. Few months after we homeschooled my son, my uncle confronted me in front of everybody, blaming me, saying I was very irresponsible to pull my children out when my children is doing well in school. And I was caught off guard because it was in public, there are a lot of people, and I don't know how to say it in a respectful manner, explain to him. And I have to tell you the truth, I'm a bit pissed off because he just tell me off like that in front of people. Surprisingly, it's my dad who stand up and defended my decision. He was telling my uncle how different my son was after homeschooling, because my son has always been a straight A student but very empty inside him. You can talk to him and he just couldn't be bothered about anything. But after homeschooling for a few months, we've been traveling and we've been exposing them to stuffs and all that. He spoke to my son about what he wanted to do, and God knows what my son said, but he told my uncle, he said, I was very impressed with what he wants to do. He wanted to help people, and he wanted to use his comic to actually spread the message or whatever. And at that time he was like 16 years old. But what it shows is that we have never seen that side of him. We've never seen him bothered about anything or have any interest about anything. And suddenly my dad sees that. So I always tell people, pray that the results will speak loud enough and help you explain. It might come soon, it might come later, it might not even come, but God is very graceful. If you have a good intention and you're doing this sincerely, not to prove to anybody, stop trying to prove to people. You want to prove that homeschooling is the best or homeschooling works better than school. Stop that. If you have a sincere intention, the result will actually speak for itself, and they will notice. And you don't have to do any explanation. But please be very civil with the grandparents and the elders, because they have good intention. If you are rude to them, you're teaching your children to be rude to their elders as well. So that's one thing we need to remember when we face all these objections.
Thank you, Haslinda. This is really true. I also have some resistance, not from my parents. My parents said, "Oh, you're a teacher, you know what you're doing," but my mother-in-law said, "Oh, you're gonna ruin your kids. Their whole future, you're throwing it out the window." And we just left it be. We don't want to argue with her because it's the grandmother. We want her to be around. We want her to feel comfortable visiting and things like that. So after maybe about 6 or 8 months, I said to her one day, I said, "Would you like to see what we are doing?" And then we just sat down and I took out the things that we had been doing and I took out the pictures and I just showed her. And after that, she was like, "Well, this is okay. Actually, they are doing fine. And you're right, the results." And then she will always see what we are doing on Facebook and things like that. And she's very proud now, actually. She is very supportive now, and she doesn't have any worries at all anymore. So yes, I think the results, they definitely speak for themselves. And being civil is very, very important because you don't want to burn the relationships of people that are important in the lives of our children. Yeah. KB, did you want to add anything?
In terms of, I think objections, if we are firm on our ground, what we want to do, I think we can make things happen. In some ways, it's a test of how strong we are committed to the values that we hold. But what I want to share is, what my dad mentioned. Homeschool is not about school taken out and then school at home. It's a lifestyle. It's a value system. It's an approach to learning. I would say, I'm not sure if my dad would agree with, but I would say that I was homeschooled in a way, the principles. We were given the opportunity to explore what we wanted to do. But my dad didn't say that both my brother and sisters were national tennis players representing the country. They went that deep as I spent 10 years in the Bible. The deep, right? We had that opportunity to explore, and now we know what life was there. My nephew, he was a national swimmer. We have reached to that level of competitive sports to understand. You're not surface, and then that's it, walk away. So they know. I think the ability to allow your children to explore and allow the freedom for me to explore is what's most important for us, and that sets the pace, the tone in the home that learning have no boundaries. So when we talk about homeschooling, we actually want to allow our children to learn at home. It's allowing them the freedom to explore and the freedom to learn, even though they may be wrong. But we are there to help them, turn back to their place.
Yeah, sure.
I really like what has been said, and it is true that eventually the parents or your in-laws will get to see how your children behave. I remember when our children were very young, although there were some reservations but not strong objections, but my kids spending time with my dad and with Sukching, my wife's dad, actually changed their opinions about how the kids were raised. They could play Chinese chess at a very early age and beat the parents, And they say, "Oh, where did you learn Chinese chess? None of you speak English at home, and who taught these people that?" And eventually they saw the journals, they saw what they did, and they keep away thinking, "Hey, they are okay." In fact, they find that they were able to conduct themselves in a very respectful manner, and I think that made the difference. So I like what has to say, you're not there to confront them. When our parents were at home, my kids would serve. They would bring out the plates or cups and all that, and they take things to the kitchen. I think all these things leave a very strong impression that you are teaching your kids values that are way beyond just mere academics. And I think that really helps. Yeah, I agree that you should allow your kids to interact, and you should allow them to be with the parents, and that's where they will learn. There was one occasion when I sent my kids to interview my dad. I said, "Okay, this is how you learn history. Talk to my dad about what happened in the Japanese occupation." So they took a book and they interviewed him. What happened, when you were at this age, what did the Japanese army do to you? And he just learned stories about, smuggling cigarettes and all that. And so they were recording all those things. And I think that built a lot of relationships and also improved the their acceptance that what our kids were doing was right.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems like a big hurdle, but if you give it time, it can resolve itself. The next question is about what happens after secondary school, so to speak. A lot of people are concerned, how will my child transition into university or adulthood from homeschooling, because they won't have a SPM certificate. What do I do? Should I be concerned? So this one, I think, definitely every one of these panelists can answer because they have older kids who have faced it. All right, so maybe we start with Haslinda, because you just recently, your children just recently did IGCSE, so you can talk about it.
My biggest reservation before I start homeschooling is this, because one is my kids were in school and then want to homeschool. Second is because when we started, my kids are much older than the rest of the homeschooling community's children. They are pretty young communities, so I don't know whether there are issues with older kids. There are issues with kids that have been to school that need to be homeschooled. You know, there are different issues that need to be resolved. So I was in a different situation, and I remember speaking to Eileen on the phone. I don't know whether she remembers that or not, but and she lead me to a few other people, and I get to know that there are people like David and all that has done it and has gone through the path, and their children have graduated and all that. So I feel at peace knowing there are people who have done this and have gone through this, that their kids gone to college. Having said that, we know that college is not the only option. We know that certain kids are never meant for academy. Their path is somewhere else. I think what parents nowadays need to detach themselves. It's so hard to be a parent these days. There's so much judgment from others and there's so much judgment from ourselves. We scrutinize every single thing, and things that comes natural to our parents before, not natural anymore to us. We think about everything, how to feed them, how to play with them, what to do, how to read. Certain stuff that our grandparents just do it lah, we go with the flow lah, certain things, yeah. So, we always brag about Mark Zuckerberg, about Steve Jobs, but have you asked yourself, if your kids actually wants to do things in the backyard and don't want to go to school, would you be okay with that? Would you actually be okay with your kid? Then you will say, yeah, but our kids is not Steve Jobs, our kids are not Mark Zuckerberg, and how many Mark Zuckerberg is there in this world? But this is the thing. We know that there are people who take the less traveled path and do well. Why can't that people be your kid? What is stopping your kids from being that person? It's your support, right? And your belief and your faith that he will be one. So this is one thing that you need to remember about college. Having said that, our personal experience, when we first homeschool everybody, we thought of giving, especially my eldest, 1 year of gap year. We end up giving him like 3-4 years of gap year, because after 1 year we're like, alamak, it's like just warming up. Okay, maybe another year, and then another year. So finally this year I told him, I said, dude, I need your room. You have a little brother, I think you need to move out and you need to take your IGCSE, no more gap year. But what I'm trying to say is that people think we get the hang of stuff, and people think that, we are so in control. We are not. We are just going with the flow. College is definitely possible. My experience, after a few years, we decided that maybe college is the best path for my number 1 and number 2. while I was searching for information about IGCSE, because IGCSE seems to be the simplest route for us because we don't have transcript and all that, so I say, okay, you know, we take IGCSE for academic. I realized how commercial it is, education is in Malaysia, at least. And I get really turned off. We ask around how much it will cost for kids to prepare for IGCSE, tons of money. The average amount you pay for tutor is 80 to 100 ringgit per hour per subject. You're crazy. You know, and this is at the age of everything is a Google click away. So after I asked around, and then another thing that really turned me off is that when we ask the center, the most standard answer they will say, oh yeah, but your kids, are they ready? They need to be with us at least like 1 or 2 years to be our student. If not, you know, we have to do assessment and see whether they fit to be accepted into our center. Because your kids, regardless of how much you pay, will be their statistic. You know? So I don't want to screw up my statistic because we need to see how many people got A, how many people got B. So it is all business. And, or if you don't want to join classes, we have intensive, where we do past years for 3 months, 1,500 ringgit per subject. I was like, I better go travel. I would rather put that money somewhere else. So finally I told my kids, I said, look, we homeschool you for 3-4 years. We teach you the real meaning of education. We teach you how to find information and learn for yourself. I think it will really undo everything that we have done if we start sending you to the center and you sitting there, listening to the teachers, purging out past year's questions and what. Why can't you do this at home? So I get so disappointed and turned off. We decided to do IGCSE on our own. And we didn't go to any tutorials and whatever. We prepared in 2 months plus. We are crazy because we are last minute people. We just want to get the exam out of the way. But I can tell you this. It was one of the best experiences that my kids have ever gone through. We sit for IGCSE, they sit for IGCSE in May. It gives them the experience to actually, how do I collate information? When there is so much information on internet, how do you find the right information? It also teaches them how to work under pressure. You can talk until cows come home. Guys, you need to organize your time. Guys, you need to, you know, have a schedule. My family is one of the chaotic family you can ever met. Okay? We have never nailed it, like all this schedule, all this chart of being organized. No. So that's why we did IGCSE in 2 months plus. But it gives my children the real experience of how to actually handle things. And we didn't stop their life commitment. They still do their sports, they still do whatever commitment that they have, they still do. I said, the world doesn't stop because of your exam. So life continues as usual. You just got to manage and juggle this. And they did. They will say, oh, can we skip ice hockey today? But you know, you have ice hockey on Friday. So we did, even during their exam days. Everything is as usual. Because I told them, I said, if you go to college, are you going to stop your life just because you have an assignment? Are you going to stop your life just because you have an exam? You can't do that, right? Life goes on. You have to manage. If you have 1 hour, how can you use this 1 hour in maximum and try to get as much things done? So these are the things that they get through when they go through the exam. I know some homeschooling purists keep telling us, oh, but college is not everything. You know, why do you all go through the exam? Yeah, but different people, different path. And for my kids who have been unschooled for 3-4 years, going through the exam give them push them to actually go through the stress and how they manage it and how to schedule themselves. These are the things that they need to go through themselves. So for us, it doesn't matter what their result is. Thank God their result is decent enough, but for us, we have achieved our exam objective. And I realize this, when we go through this, we are not scared anymore. I've been to school. I've been through school and I am not a kiasu parent, but I can tell you, regardless of how not kiasu you are, it's very difficult not to get sucked into this because everybody talk about the exam. You can't tell the kid that A's doesn't matter when they don't get straight A's, when the whole world has been talking about straight A's for years, you know? How can you tell that kid that her worth is not depending on her A's when, you know, for years they have been drilled that you got to get straight A's. It's very difficult. I've gone through UPSR, I've gone through PMR. I can tell you it's crazy. I don't like it. You might like it, but I personally don't. And I think it do more harm than good to my children. So when we go through IGCSE this year, it was really different. On the day the IGCSE result come out, we were in Japan, going somewhere, the volcano, and trying to find out stuff. We only checked the result in the evening. We have passed that stage where we are freeze and we can't think of anything on exam day. I think that's what we as a family learn. Because we know whatever result that they got, we will just move on from them. We will make the best out of it. It is not the end, it's means to an end. So when we see they got ungraded for their admits, we just chuckle. How silly we are to think they will survive 2 months preparing for it. We know they won't score, but it is a business decision. But I think this is what you need to learn. You know, exam chill. You know, I don't want my kids to take things easy either. They can testify to you how horrible I can be and how monstrous I can be. You do want them to have the right attitudes and stuff like that, but I think if you treat exam the right way, it can do tons of good things to the child. So, I can't talk about college, they're not in college yet, but pray for me, they get scholarship.
Thank you so much, Heslinda. It's really an eye-opener. It's a different view of exams. I wanted to ask KV though, because you didn't do IGCSE, did you?
Oh, I did.
You didn't. Your kids have done different things. So there are, like Heslinda said, there's different paths for different people. Different families do different things. So your kids didn't go that path. Can you share what they did?
Yes, very interesting experience. Very similar, but I won't talk about the similarities. I think there are a couple of things we have learned from this experience. Number one, if you decide to homeschool and you want to take education more seriously, you know, with our children, let's get over the fact that college is important. Right? It is important as many other paths. It's not the only path. Let's get over that. Don't go to college now. Okay, I don't go to college. I've been just visit college. You know. I became a visiting student. I visiting student in. I must tell you this. I somehow or other ended up becoming a visiting student at the University of California, Berkeley. So if somebody says something, it's like, wow, how do you get that? Another follow. I think two things need to remember. Number one is this first one. You know, there are many paths. Number two is ask your child. Your children will tell you what they want to do. The eldest one is she decided, and she went for IGCSE, and she took the course. But she decided what subjects she wanted to take and you know. At the end of the day, she decided not to take the exam because she felt that it's not what she wanted to do. Fair enough. It's her decision. Let her make it like my dad told me this is her decision. You know? So same, right? And this is the freedom because somewhere along the line, we spoke to her. I said, you know, maybe psychology or something. Later. Not now. Now, I confuse what she does most of the time. But I know songwriting, singing, number one. Ice skating, number two. Then somewhere there is ballet. So she's a ballet teacher. She's an ice skate coach. And she is a singer-songwriter. She has produced an album. I think that's good enough. Okay, that's very good at this point. My second one, college. Don't even talk. Okay, dyslexic, right? She loves to dance. Okay. So a bit of advertisement tonight, 8 o'clock. Visiting the channel 310. She's dancing in the finals of the Asian Battleground. Her passion is dance. She recently won the Malaysian Asian Battleground team. Now she's in the Asian finals. Tonight's the finals. Right? And that's the passion. Okay? I think is she successful? 1 year contract with Astro. Good. She make money. I think eventually somewhere along the line she would. She's now buying shoes, shirts, all. She's the only one with branded clothes in the house where we don't have to pay. Okay, I said, oh, good. Yeah, it saves one way of making money. One way of making money is not spending money. So, I think we have to think in a different way. Yeah? So I think that's her career path is starting to move. Right? My son, 12, talk about college. I had a very interesting conversation with one of his teachers. He's learning programming right now. And yesterday they completed the first set of programs that they have uploaded on the internet, Minecraft, I think you know it, which allow people to download. So they are creating sub-programs at 12, right? I spent a lot of my years managing programmers in my job. And at 12 years old, I think it's very interesting because if you are one to understand programmers, 100 people going in first year programming, IT programming, 95 of them probably have not done programming in their lives. Because they spend their time passing the UPSR, PMR, then I want to do programming and then I go to the first year, oh, now just programming. Right? So what we are doing is that we are creating the basics and the grounding and the foundation. They start Java programming next month. So I think if he decides to go to college and do programming first year, I think his foundation is fantastic. If he decides that path. And homeschooling allows us to have that choice, right? And if we ask our son, do you like it? And I mean, he's not here today because he programmed until 1 AM last night, cannot wake up this morning, right? So that he likes it, right? So allow them the opportunity, follow the passion. If college value adds to that, let it be. That should be the way. Right?
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left for this question. And David, your kids have actually gone into the university. Yeah, so talk about your experience.
Well, not every child is academically inclined and you have to give allowances, and I think that's a key paradigm shift that you have to effect in your own life. My oldest, after he was 18, he originally set for SAT because at the time everybody was talking about SAT, and I was telling people, yeah, SAT is the way to go, but eventually you learned that actually there were other options besides SAT. But he did SAT, he did quite well, he set for it twice to improve his grades. But at the point when he did that, we were not very sure how it would end up. But like what has just said, my son took also a kind of a gap year, and he went on to join a ship that took him to Europe for about 6 to 8 months, basically doing other things, visiting other countries for a while. And so eventually he used that SAT to go into a university in US. And with the transcripts that was gathered through the years, he had done things with Amy, he had climbed Mount Kinabalu, all sorts of things, and he went to the commissioner of oath, start stamping everything. Yes, he did run the Millennium Marathon, everything, and he wrote his essays, and he got a scholarship and went to university in Texas. So that is the SAT route. My second son took the IGC SE O levels route, so it was quite different, and he went to a learning center for 6 to 8 months, and surprisingly, he managed to get straight A's for subjects he never sat for in the past. And it assured me that actually, if you really have to do it, any child can succeed. Particularly in the home, it's secure, there's a lot of acceptance, there's a lot of affirmation to the things that they are doing, and they are not pressured to perform. Just do what you can. And I think that you can do it. And so with the opportunities available today, you can choose to be either go to college through SAT or O-levels, whatever it is. I think that's fine. And you can choose to be a dancer, you can choose to do anything you like. But the most important thing is that your heart has to be there. And my own values that I pass on to my children would be, don't just live for yourself. I'm glad that today Elliot is helping out with refugees, and he's taking time off to do that. And I'm glad that he's making time to help people who are less fortunate than us. To me, that's a great thing, more than just trying to score and be another Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. Eventually, he may become something like that, but it doesn't matter. The most important is he's doing something that is valuable to humanity, and I'm happy with that.
Thank you. All right, we have one final question before we go to the question and answer session. And this one is, from your experience, what do you think is the #1 misconception about homeschool? Maybe other than things we have talked about. Anyone want to take a stab at that?
That you have to be patient and perfect and superwoman before you do it. You will never be. Yeah. I've always had people, to the point I get really annoyed, I just again smile and change the subject. They will say, oh my God, I can never be like you. Like what? Scream to my children? Seriously, parenting, you know, when you think you got it, then there will be new challenges, you know? So you always learn, right? You will never be perfect. You will never be that poster mom that is so zen and got things in control. Everybody have eaten on time, bathed on time. You know, you will never reach that. If you think the reason is big enough, strong enough for you to do it, just do it. Even if you screwed up, you will have no regrets, because the regret of not doing it will be worse than the regret of doing and screwing up. I can tell my children 5 years, 10 years from now, I suck at certain things, but I've done what I can. This is the best, and I have tried my best. Yeah. So I think the first thing that you need to do is stop being so hard on yourself. You will never be that perfect parent. Even, you know, if anybody says they are, I think there's something wrong. Because there's no perfect parents. So if all you need for homeschooling is a reason, the reason is personal. Everybody has different reason of doing it. Some people doing it for religious reason. Some people are doing it because the child has tried school and never liked it. Some people are doing it because the child doesn't fit into school. So everybody has different reason. So you can't use my reason. So I always ask people, you want to do homeschooling, you have to find your own reason. Not because it's the in thing to do, or you know, it's something sounds like a trend. No, you have to find your reason. Once you found your reason, you need to get your partner on board. That's all the support you need. The rest of the world can disagree with you, but if your partner agrees with you on the board, that's all you need. You don't need a degree. You don't need a degree, you don't need a PhD to teach your children. You don't need to be that qualified teacher. So you get your support of your partner, you can do it. The third misconception is, I need to be educated enough. Do you need to be educated to teach your child to walk? Do you need to be educated enough to teach cooking? No, right? What you need to understand is that the world has changed. There are so many ways a kid can learn, and there is only so much you can teach. So if your kids want to learn programming, and you are gadget illiterate like me, you want to learn programming to teach your kids programming? That's crazy. There are resources for that. Your job is to open the door and facilitate and find people and guide them. Not everything you have to teach. You know, I still suck at physics and maths. My kids sit for IGCSE for physics and maths. So you don't need to be good at everything, then teach your children. Your children can learn on their own. If you set a good foundation, if you did well during your foundation years, the kids love learning, you have no problem, because the resources are there. So that's some of the common misconceptions.
Okay, anyone else want to add?
I think the biggest advantage for the parents of home study is they can sleep. They can sleep late, they get up late in the morning. They don't have to make breakfast early in the morning and send the children to the school. That's the biggest advantage they have. No uniform, no need to pay money on uniform, no need to do that. But one thing, most of the parents nowadays, especially the school-going children, They always stress to their children that you got to study hard to make money, to earn a better living. I was even asking myself what they are talking about, better learning, better living. You earn better if you study hard. But they never realize that if you force the children to study, if you force the children to go to tuition, they go to school at 5 o'clock, they come back at 3 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock in the evening they are forced to go to the tuition. But out of the number of children that have gone, they are going to that is going to the tuition one. They don't know how many percent actually go to the tuition class. They don't even know what their children are doing. Because I used to go, sometimes myself quietly used to go to tuitions and school to see what actually they are doing. These children, some of the children which I noticed, almost time they will go to the tuition class, and then the parents will waiting there to pick them up. That they don't know. They always strike into their mind, easy, make money, you must study hard to make money, just study hard to make money. And they never realize that that is not the way to earn a living. I have friends now who have very, very low education and now is a multi-millionaire and the owner of factories in Chicago. They teach me, better things. One day, when I went up to the directors, I told him that one of the staff wants to take a few months off to study in USA. I said, if he wants to go, let him go, resign and go. You don't need graduates like that. You don't need graduates like that. Then he pushed me a question to me. Are you a graduate? What position are you holding now? There are so many graduates working under you, Mr. Sun. Do you know or not? They have to listen what you tell them to do now. Sometimes you have to teach them how to do it. Earning a living is not what people you have. Earning a living is here. It's all here. How you handle your brain, how you make use of your brain. I keep on telling my children how you make use of your brain. In life, there are a few things that you must avoid. You must avoid. And best to avoid smoking, drinking, gambling, and that one to say. And you get one of those involved, it's bad for everybody, not only for him or himself. Gambling is the worst. I've got a lot of friends who told me, if any people do a lot of bad things to me, I don't have to take revenge against the person who will take the bad thing to me. What I need to do is to teach one of his children how to gamble is enough. How to gamble is enough. Well, gambling, no limits. No limits. I can give you an example of my cousin. Colombo, very rich man, Manlung, he separated and built and opened a company called Unschooling. When gambling started, not long ago, and he got involved in gambling. Not long ago, the Unschooling also disappeared. Billions of money he has disappeared. Whatever it is, teach your children, no smoking, no drinking, no gambling, no drug addict, Drinking, how much can you drink? You can drink the whole night. How many bottles can you drink? There's a limit there. There's a limit there. Smoking, how many packets can you smoke? Now, a lot of people don't realize that, this fellow drink a lot, waste a lot of money. Yes, waste money, but how much can you drink? But gambling, one thing about gambling, you must teach your children, no gambling, no gambling. I myself sometimes, because my father, for all these things, I inherited one, gambling very little, still lose a lot of money. There's no limit. Never touch gambling, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. We have to stop there because time has run out for this session of questions. Now what I want to do is open the floor to questions and allow the audience to ask more questions they want to know about the basics of homeschooling. So, we have one over there. And please tell us your question, your name, and which of the people you would like to answer the question.
Hello, my name is Shazali. My kids are 11, 10, 7 and 2. I've got 4 kids. The eldest daughter, the rest sons. So education has always been associated to a place. You know, you go to school, you learn, you come back, lepak depan TV, turn switch your brain off. So that's the issue that I've got with school, and we waste a lot of time traveling, you know, and sometimes the teacher in the class got to focus on the weaker ones, so the kids go nganga, don't do anything. So a lot of wastage of time, I would say. So now we've got timetable. We've got timetable at the school, and we've got syllabus, right? So now if we gonna have them at home, what syllabus are we gonna look at, and what timetable are we gonna look at? I know my paradigm is still school paradigm. I need to move that away, but there must be some kind of orderliness lah. Otherwise, they will have a gala time at home, and and we don't know what to, at some point we must benchmark them against something. Learning must have defined parameters, right? So that is my question. So
About structure.
Yes,
Okay.
how to structure the learning at home.
Okay, I think we should have David and Kiwi answer this question because you guys kind of have two different approaches.
I want to say that my kids had a gala time at home. I think a lot of homeschoolers, you'll find that we are not as structured as you imagine. I was going to say that one of the misconceptions of homeschooling is that it's very structured, but I never got to answer that. But at the end of the day, I agree that there has to be some kind of benchmark. So I normally tell parents that the least thing you could do is to decide where you want your kids to end up. So when our children were very young, we thought that SAT was the route. So that was the one that we used to benchmark. Okay, you got to make sure the foundation is good, your vocabulary, you master the basics, the 3 R's and all that. They learn to write and read very early, and so.
What's SAT, sorry?
SAT is a scholastic aptitude test that prepares you for entry into colleges in the US. So it's
like A level.
Yeah. Well, you could call it equivalent to that O levels of a thing. And so they did that as a benchmark, and so that allowed you to see, all right, are they equipped, and would that get them into college if they were good into S? But if you are looking at, let's say, education locally, the colleges. The private colleges will look at what they call the SPM equivalent, which is the O levels. And Hastin has done a very good paper on how to do that. And so if you use it as a benchmark, all right, I want my kid to go to a college if they choose to, and O levels your benchmark, then you'll know that you have to master certain curriculum. There are 5 subjects, whatever it is, and so you just go through that. So that will give you some kind of a basis to aim at. And that would help. But eventually, if your child has changed his mind, he says, I want to be a programmer, then of course you could change. I can tell you stories of people a family I know whose daughter was actually prepared to do an SAT, but eventually she ended up being a cellist. And in the end, that was what she did. And she basically dumped your maths, your science, your physics, and all that, and just focused on that, and got herself a GED, which is an American program. And just pursue playing the cello, and now she performs in the orchestra in KLCC, so that's possible.
Right, thank you, David. Kiwi, you practice something more like what we call unschooling, right? And it's kind of like at the other end of the spectrum where there isn't a lot of structure. Can you talk about that more?
Yeah, first of all, that's what it is. Totally unstructured. Another way of putting it is the gala continues. It's better than the gala in the house, we know what's happening, and the gala outside. But I think more seriously, I think you said something really interesting. It's about, I think we have not switched our paradigm yet. I think it's something that we need to do. Right? We have to, homeschooling, I mean, I don't quite like the term also. Homeschooling is not about schooling, it's about home. Home first. Right? Education is about learning, it's not about benchmarking. Right? Okay. Benchmarking happens and it's necessary. I'm not saying not important, it's important. When you're aiming for something and you set yourself that milestone to achieve what you want to achieve. And that comes with exploration with your spouse. And more importantly, exploration with your child. Right? One of the first things that we learned when we were starting to homeschool our children is we went to the US, attended the homeschool conference. It's called the California Homeschool Conference. Big poster in front, there's a child leaping off a cliff. I believe into the water, so the big word that says, trust your child. You've got to trust them. You've got to ask them. If they say don't know, okay, never mind, don't know now. Right? As they grow older, they'll tell you. They'll tell you what they want. Then you set the benchmarks together, what you're going to do. Yeah? And I think there'll be a lot of stories you can share later on. In our website, we have a lot of these stories. Okay? So, when child very young, allow them the opportunity to have the freedom to learn. And that's what home education or home learning is about, the freedom to learn and explore and discover. And in doing that, they discover about themselves. I think that's important. That is a solid grounding for them in their future, whatever they want to do in their future. So let's start with that part.
I really couldn't agree more with what KB has said. I don't know how many times when I worked at Help University College and I would counsel students, they would pick majors because their friend was going to be there, or because their parents said you should just major in this. But they don't really know what they want. They're so lost. And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being spent for this. And you are talking about 20, 30 years of your life that you are trying to figure out what you want to do. And I think that it's just so important is that figure it out. Figure out who you are. Help your child figure that out. I think that's the most important thing we can do in education. And as they figure it out, then you know what the skills they need to get there. And you help them along the way. What is the path that they're going to be? Is it university? Then we start to plan along that way. Is it trades? We start to plan along that way. Is it entrepreneurship? We start to plan along that way. But the first thing is, who is your child? Yeah, we got to figure that out together. You know? And I think that's where we start. And then structure comes in. Structure comes according to what God's created your child to be. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for answering that. I'm sure there are many more questions. Got another one here in the row, the gap shirt.
My name is Sean. I'm a parent of 2 young daughters. I believe we have been talking about homeschooling the whole time during this forum. I found it that isn't it pretty stressful that we follow like certain curriculum sitting from IGSE. How about the unschooling route that actually parents can actually do? Is it more stressful for the parents? Parents no need to be so stressed, less disciplined. They can just do what they want. It's more like a child-led process. How do you go about on that? Then my second question would be
Okay, wait. Let's stop at the first question. Okay, and then we'll talk about maybe other things. So, how do you do unschooling? You're really curious about that, is it? Yeah. All right. Well, this KB again. He's the unschooling champion, and we're gonna give him answer the question.
I got no trophy, unfortunately. I want to just stop one point that you mentioned. Unschooling doesn't mean no discipline. So let's get that.
It's more like a child-led process.
It's a child-led process. A child-led process can be extremely free on one end, and it can be extremely structured because the child wants a structure. So you know what they want to do, right? Unschooling is not so much about the child, in my opinion. it's more about us as parents. You know, I want to answer in this way because we are taught and we are trained in the system to understand that by a certain age, must do this thing, by a certain time, must do this thing. You know, it's the panic button in the parents that what's happening in my job? How come they are not doing anything? What have you learned today? Nothing. Wow. You know, it was part of my experience as well because I go to work and come back, you know, my link tries to do worksheet with them and then it doesn't work out, so they don't do anything. So it comes back and then so what did you learn today? Nothing. But it's really us. It's really us. Okay, we need to understand one thing. In the unschooling environment, the whole principle of unschooling is that the child is a natural learner. Child learns. If you leave a child somewhere, he will survive. He will survive. He will learn. You don't teach him how to walk, he will walk. Right? When he's hungry and look for food. That's how humans survive. Because humans survive is in our DNA to learn, to be educated. Some guy came along and said you must educate in this way. Somewhere in the Industrial Revolution, the first time, I can't remember what year it was. Right? So unschooling is about taking that perception away and allowing the child to freedom and allowing ourselves as parents to be distressed and not be framed in their mind that, oh, you have to do this by now, why you are not doing that, right? But all said and done, you know, sometimes we need reassurance. We need to know some level of benchmarking. They actually learning anything, right? So that's where parents come together, we share experiences, you know, and then groups like this. And the more we listen to a child, the child will tell you what she wants to do. Sometimes we don't listen enough. Like my second daughter, very young, she says, I love dancing. Okay. So, girl, dancing, me, parents, Asian, equals ballet. Correct, right? Okay. The daughter said, I love dancing. Oh, okay, I signed you in ballet school. Cannot get up in the morning, don't want to go, cannot find the tutu, go to the house, cannot find the other shoe. Hey, I thought you like dancing. Right. But it was stressful. Right? When it's stressful in our schooling environment, we know that something is not right. Something was not right. Then one day she saw this show on TV, showdown, dancing, this crazy dance, flip right round, you spin, you know. And she says, this is dance. This is the dance, not ballet. Okay, so yeah, that's what it is. Open up, learn, and allow them to grow.
Thank you, Katie. I've been told we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to take 5 minutes for one question and 5 minutes for another, so 2 more questions. All right.
If you don't mind, I just finish my second question.
No, I'm really going to give others a chance. So I'm going to give this lady here and this lady in the black shirt over there because I know she's also been waiting. Okay.
Hi, I'm Putri. Very short and quick. It's quite personal. I'm running a business. I'm very, very busy. Both me and my husband's doing, we're into education. We're doing play-based learning. But how do I make this, because my time's already unstructured, you know, like meetings, you know, you don't know your timing. So how do I drag along my children with me? I've got 5. Yeah, at first it's 10, 8, 5, 3 and 1. I would love to do homeschooling because I fight for education and I know what is right. You know, that's what I feel. Please help. I don't know how to make it.
Do you want to address this to any particular
Anybody
person?
can help if, yeah. Thank you.
Well, this mother has got 5 as well. She has to balance as well.
I think I've established I'm the most chaotic mom, right? Sometimes my kids have to find their own breakfast and lunch and dinner. Anyway, few things. One is the moment you decide to homeschool, you have to decide macro-wise what is acceptable for you and your partner for your kids to learn by a certain age. Not the school way like by 6, by 7, by 8, but you can gauge like, okay, by 9 these kids maybe should know how to read and is reading and stuff like that, or you have your own benchmark. Okay, you can get this from internet, and there are tons of information. What is my benchmark might not be your benchmark. I might be fine with my kids not reading at 9, but you are not fine. Don't push yourself. If you're not fine, then put reading as your goal. Then you will feel better, because when you homeschool, there'll be ups and downs. There'll be times when you think you're a superhero. There are times where you feel like you're the worst mother ever. You need to keep reminding yourself about your objective to keep you on track. So one is be very clear about what you want for your child. Okay, for Muslims, some people, okay, I need my child to know how to pray, how to read Quran by certain age. So if you work that out, you will realize that there's actually not much you want from a child. At least by 12 years old, by 17 years old. Not as much as what school wants to do with them. Okay? So one is to be very clear of your objective. Second is to understand kids don't learn from 9 to 5. Do you learn from 9 to 5? Do. They just need, if you can do a solid 1 hour or a solid 2 hours every day with the kids, that's actually more than what they have done in school. Because they are learning in a very maximum capacity, and what you need to do, and you don't have to do everything. If you do a good job in that, it doesn't even have to be 1 hour. Sometimes it takes like half an hour. You already like push them to do it, inspire them to do more. They can do self-learn and stuff on their own. Like you teach them, and then they do their own exploration. So that can be done, and there are tons of resources that they can do on their own. We have iPad, apps, education can be on the go, it doesn't have to be at home. Anything that have Wi-Fi, they can listen. We studied IGCSE 100% using resources, free resources on the internet. So that is another thing that you need to learn. Third is to get yourself into the tribe. You need the support. You can't do this on your own. There are different type of people in the homeschooling community. I don't know how people like David do it before the age of Facebook. I really can't imagine that. But I have a valid reason for Facebook. Like my kids say, how come we cannot be on Facebook and you can? Oh, because my Facebook is my work. I get information for you guys, which is true. So I have valid reason. But what I'm trying to say is you have to get connected with people. I can tell you until cow comes home how homeschooling is, but if you don't get connected with the people, because different people do differently. If I might be, I can never do unschooling 100%. I'm just not comfortable. And I won't pretend. And you shouldn't pretend too. So if you are a more structured person, and you like schedules and it makes you feel better, do it. If you are a syllabus kind of person, structured person, do it. If that is your way, what works for you might not work for me. Homeschooling is a very, very personal thing. It's a lifestyle thing. So you definitely can do when you're working. We have single mothers who are working, who homeschool. We have people who were homeschooled by the father instead of the mother. We have parents that are working. We have all sorts kind of people who are actually doing it. Or you can even send it to the center. So there are many ways. So as long as one, you sort out your objective. Second, you understand that kids have many ways to learn and you don't actually need hours of learning to learn. You just need, truthfully, after 5 years of homeschooling, I've never done 1 hour. Okay? I probably do 1 hour a week and post it on Facebook, like that's my achievement for the whole month.
I totally agree with you.
Yes.
Isn't this like that? There will be days when you don't do anything.
Yes.
And really, and you won't do anything, but then you will be amazed. You sit down and read with your kid and you'll realize, hey, they jumped 2 levels. How did that happen without me? Of course it happened without you. They were living their life without you paying attention to them all the time. They were reading, they were doing things.
So it's very possible. But you need to get your, and the last one is very important, because I don't meet up with people very frequent, but they are there virtually. And I don't think our homeschooling journey would ever be possible without Facebook. I have got strangers offering to teach my children and help out my children and open door for my children in unthinkable ways that I've never think it is possible before. So get yourself connected. It takes a village, even if it is a virtual village.
Thank you so much, Helen. I would also add, I'm an entrepreneur like yourself, and your business is a fantastic resource. They learn so much coming around with you. Yes, drag them along, because they will learn about entrepreneurship. They learn all of those skills too. It's not like learning only happens when you sit down with a book. Actually they are learning 24/7 actually. And they are learning about public speaking, they are learning about negotiation, they are learning about pricing, sales, so many things. They are learning from you as an entrepreneur, so don't discount that as a resource as well. That your business, what you do in there is also teaching them something.
Could I say something? I think that we are so focused on learning and what to teach them, we forget that actually it is a lifestyle and parenting as well. I think that you need to work out with your spouse how you're going to make sure that you are involved as parents in the lives of the children, whether they're unschooling or whether it's structured, because at the end of the day I realize that that relationship with your children is deepened and it helps their learning. So it's not so much of just dragging them along to your workplace, but you got to make sure, work at the time so that your husband is involved in some way, and then after that you are involved in some way. So the connection between your children will be one of the most invaluable resources, because after all is said and done, it's your relationship with your child that will stay, and also steer them on the right course. You know? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the last question was this lady over here with the M on her shirt in black. Okay, and this will be the final question. If you didn't get a chance to answer, don't worry, we have a break. You can mob us. Afterwards, we will try our best to answer your questions.
Hi, morning everyone, I'm Karen. My question is more towards to David. I'm a mother of 3-year-old boy and 10 months, so I'm just starting to think about homeschooling. So I would like to know, how did you start out and what was it like in the beginning? Everyone is sending their kids to Kitty, my friends around me, but I'm still thinking, my boy can't even wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's at 11, he wakes up, so I'm letting him be whatever he wants to be at the moment. So I'm toying with the idea of homeschooling to see how it goes. So I want to know, how did you start out? What did you do in the beginning with to homeschool your
I
kids?
ask my wife that.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say maybe your wife here.
I don't know whether Suk-Ching would like to answer that question, because actually we took it very easy, and we didn't rush, because 3 years old or 3 months is just too early, just let them play. Maybe Suk-Ching would just answer.
Yeah, maybe you can give the mic to Suk-Ching.
Okay, I think I really thank God for my husband and me finding out about homeschooling at the right time when the kids were just about, the older one was just about to enter into kindy. We sent him to kindy at 4 years old because everybody said, what, your kid not in kindy? So we said, and he suffered. He was bullied, he was beaten. He came home with teeth marks on his hand. And so after a few months of that, we said no. Okay, that was the time we read out about homeschool and we found out, and we decided he stay at home, 4 years old, play with his 2-year-old, and then I gave up my job, and I tell you, it was the best years of my life, enjoying the 2 boys. And what we did was basically we played, yes. And we read aloud, just read storybooks, go library, borrow tons of books home, go to the playground every day, swimming pool every evening, and just play, and yeah, that's it. And they learn through playing, and they learn through, that's it. And then, and we really started structured, maybe not 10 years old, but they were learning so much. And talking about benchmarks, they never sat for any exams except piano exams. Okay, and even then, that was not every grade. We said, okay, let's just skip the grades. They sat for grade 2, grade 5, and Elliot sat for grade 8, and they had no other exams. So people were saying, what? How do you know where they stand? So one day, the auntie came from Singapore. Okay, let me test you, because they're very worried. Give you a test, English test, math test, and amazingly they did so well. And I could give them, I was teaching in Tar College at one time. I took back the English for that college, and they could do it. If you want to talk about benchmarks, they're going to be above the school level because the schools are so slow. They're learning because they love to. And you don't have to test because it might make them feel proud, So you need to go test them.
Thank you, Suchi, for that. So, I want to echo what she says is that it's really the best years of your life. I would say that too. I also gave up my career and I wanted to have something more flexible. So I left lecturing and started my own business and homeschool after that. And I have loved it. There are days, yes, you do want to pull your hair out. There are days. I'm not saying that there are not. But when you look back at it, you're like, we're having a lot of fun. And not only we're having a lot of fun, but I know my kids. And my kids talk to me about things. They're not hiding things from me. It's not like, Mom, you're so uncool, I don't want to be near you. Well, maybe there'll be a day like that, I don't know, but so far so good. And it's really been a joy, actually. And these are memories I can treasure that, I didn't give it to someone else. I get the time. I get to have them because one day I won't. One day they will be gone. They will be living their own lives, raising their own kids. Doing their own thing, and that's fine. But I just love the fact that I have them for those years, and I get to have those memories, and they have those memories too. So that's also the other really great plus point about homeschooling is strong families, and you can't beat that. Really, you can't. It's like the foundation of everything, your family. So they're feeling generous. They said one more person can ask.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to leave to Sherman by 2. Congratulations to Dr. Afzan. She's my lecturer in Militar. So we have to bring her to this tribe because I will join you all too. Okay, I was sponsored by my daughter Fatin. So all the children are homeschooling, but not mine. Now the question is all the W's I know, but the how. My daughter is in Form 1 now. Mr. Soon, you know KGV school? Yeah. So she is in the KGV Agama school. So which I prefer to her to be there. But she doesn't enjoy the class. She wants to be in KGV still, but in a normal class. The thing is that in our system, if you want to go out of KGV to the normal class, you have to go to another school and come back, which is not sure that you will be there at school. So the thing is that she doesn't want to be a homeschool. She wants to stay in KGV school. So even I told Fatih, I want to migrate to KL because I'm a single mother, the father just passed away, so I'm willing to spend and migrate here so that I have more friends over here to unschool my daughter. So please help me how to unschool my daughter.
Why do you want to unschool her?
She doesn't want to come here today.
Yeah, but she's enjoying school?
Not, she just enjoy her friends.
I'll just say something. This is the thing that, one thing that you need to get sorted out before you embark on homeschooling. The child has to want to be homeschooled. If the child doesn't want to be homeschooled and the mother wants to be homeschooled, I can tell you it's going to be really miserable. After, we might be biased that you are hearing all these good things about homeschooling. But I can tell you, as a mother who have kids who have gone through school and homeschool is not perfect. There are disadvantages of homeschool, and there are homeschooling kids who won't be so impressive to you because they are all children, they take their own time to develop and stuff like that. Okay, we might brag about this kid that has done this or done that, but there are kids who are still nowhere, still in the cloud. So the kids need to want to be homeschooled and have a reason strong enough to be pulled out from school. Some kids just do very well with structure. Some kids love the competition in school. Some kids are very sociable that they thrive better in school. That when I know cases where the kids are very sociable and the mother thinks they are not doing really well in school, they pull them out in school and they are miserable because the mom has to compensate on what the kids are missing in school. You can't create school at home. You can never do that. So unless the kids want to be homeschooled, you can't do this. Because there are so many things in school that, you know, you can't compensate. Things like if the kids are very into sports. Having teenagers, I can tell you it is possible to compensate and probably do better on the extracurriculum when homeschooled, but it does take a significant amount of effort from the parents. And maybe not everybody can do that. So let's get realistic on that. Yeah. So that's one thing that you need to sort out. You need to find out why, and if you have and you can also, it is also possible to settle on midways. You know, maybe after discussing with your daughter, there are certain things that she wants to do more. I know people who are in school but homeschool. Like the kids will be missing school on some days because they are doing stuff outside that they are passionate about. So you can do that, it is your choice. But at least keep the structure and you don't have to stress yourself about, okay, what have they learned, or I don't think I'm doing a good job. So really, you need to get that sorted. So don't be surprised there are kids who love school. And school does have an advantage. There are certain things that school can do that homeschool can't. It is not the holy grail, you know, and you can settle in the middle. So that's my point.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any? No, I'm sorry. She's shaking her head very vigorously and saying we should have to stop. Okay, but it's okay? Okay.
2 minutes, very fast. I think homeschool is a lifestyle. It's not at home. We choose to be at home. What I'm hearing is that your daughter, granddaughter, right?
My daughter.
She knows what she wants. And to me, it's important to support her.
She wants to be a pilot.
Do it. Yeah. She's now in school, right? I'm sure to move to the main school. Right? If it takes so much time to fight for it, you know, fight for it. Let her fight, support her. You know, this lesson is going to be really valuable because she's fighting for something, she wants it, she knows she can go for it. Whether she gets it at the end, it doesn't matter, but the journey is important. So you have a huge learning opportunity right in front of you right now.
Thank you. So we're going to end there. I'm going to turn it back over to Sheila. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sun, Haslinda, I think we have, that was beyond a lot. And all of you are invited to have some refreshments at the back. Pardon the space so tight, so